The stories shared on It Takes Balls are unique to the individual sharing. Always speak with your trusted medical provider for treatment options specific to you. Welcome back to It Takes Balls, presented by Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation. Today I'm joined by a testicular cancer survivor and one of Colorado's hottest businessmen. Not just saying that because he's good looking, he's also a very successful meteoric rise businessman. Daniel Ramirez, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steven, man. I appreciate it. And it's been kind of cool. And, I know we've been talking about getting on here for a long time. And when I first connected with you, I kind of was just first diagnosed. So you've been through that ride with me. So I appreciate it. And, honestly, kind of fun, being able to see each other for the first time via Zoom. So thanks for having me, man.
Oh, yeah. Likewise. It's good to see you finally. First of all, I want to thank you on behalf of TCAF for your donation. If that was your restaurant, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Our restaurants. Yeah.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, I'm Daniel Ramirez. I'm a Hispanic Mexican guy that loves to eat tacos and burritos. I mean, that's all we're all about. I grew up in the industry. I have an older brother, Luis. I ended up, going to high school, graduating, playing football in college, had the opportunity to come back and be a, strength and conditioning coach for my old alma mater. And then, finally got back into our restaurant industry. And, from there, was able to take our, family business, from a, pretty good, restaurant sales wise to doubling that in about 5 years and being able to create a structure and continued, success and, had the opportunity to meet my wife there. I have a beautiful son and, and this was all pre-testicular cancer. And, of course, I'm a testicular cancer survivor. So, that's me in a nutshell, to say the least.
Nutshell. Perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, you said strength and conditioning coach. You have been building this restaurant up. It seems like it's something that happens to guys in the prime of their lives. I mean, that's right where you were in the prime.
Yeah, honestly, it was, especially it's crazy, going through this process. I think a lot of us, with, being said, hey, you're diagnosed with cancer and testicular cancer, it's like you're already running, 500 miles an hour. And when they tell you this, like your mind races even more. And, then you come into a complete crash, like, what the heck? Like, why me? Why this? And, I know throughout that time, I was like, well, why me? Right? It's like, why? And of course, we always ask the question, why? But maybe why in the sense of a good thing. Like maybe it's we were running too fast. Or going through that and realizing it back, I was like, I was running way too fast. I was thinking, I was still 14, 15, 16-year-old teenager that, had the life in the palm of his hands. And, and I was just going too fast. And when they give you that, it's kind of like a sticker shock. Like you're gonna go buy a new car. It's like, whoa, wait, what? Like, are you serious? But it's like, no, you have cancer. So it was like, it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
What age were you when you were diagnosed?
20. So I was 28. So that was 2021. So last year, so I was 28, and then I turned 29 that June.
Wow. Okay.
And I started chemo like 3 weeks after I turned 29.
So let's go step by step through your treatment. So when you were first diagnosed, I mean, what was kind of running through your head and what kind of got you to go to the doctor to begin with?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So it was like during the month of April and, before all that, like it was weird. Like, I was more edgy. I would say like in January-ish, just thinking back, like I was more on edge. More, I guess emotional to say the least. I was just more sensitive. And, it was even weird because, I took a trip to Hawaii in March with my family. And the first time I ever got like a weird rash on my skin, it was the weirdest thing. I couldn't even be in the sun. Like it would be itchy. Like it was just super weird. I'm like, that's just weird. I don't know if it's related or not, but just some weird things that were just happening. And it was I would say about a week before Easter, my son was so attached to me and just in a weird attachment way. Like, I'm like, why? Like he would literally, you had to pull him off of me. Like I would try to walk away. I go to a table, like at the restaurant, if you were eating or something, like he would not want to get off of me. And, and he ended up stepping up on my crotch area and my right testicle just went like it just inflamed. I'm like, that's not good. Like that just doesn't seem right. And I kept an eye on it for about a week and a half, and I was like, you know what, this doesn't look good. So I want to say it was April 16th when I went and got a physical. I'm like, look, I'm going to go get this checked. And the doctor was like, hey, a lot of us, they tend to misdiagnose and say, well, have you done this? Maybe it's an STD, so on and so forth. We're going to get you on medication. I'm like, no, I mean, I would just love to get an ultrasound. Like, can we just do that? Like, I don't mind paying for it. It's fine. And then she checks like my testicle and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, he does seem a little bit. Like, let's get you an ultrasound. So we go to the ultrasound tech. I did, like, it was the third day after that. And I'm like, oh man, okay. So going to the ultrasound, like in the back of your mind, right? Like your mind is racing. You have a huge testicle. Like you can see it through your pants. Like, it's just like, that just doesn't seem right. Like you just know, like it just doesn't, it's not good. Right. And then you start looking up on Google, like, what the heck is this? It's like, okay, it's not testicular torsion because if it was, then I probably would have been to the doctor. Like you just start thinking and thinking and thinking and going through a downward spiral. So your adrenaline's like just super on high right now. And, went to got my ultrasound, and of course the tech never says anything. And they just say, yeah, okay. And they scan it, and then you're out. Like, cool. Like they can't say anything. And even though they know something's not right, 2 days after that, I get a call from from the ultrasound tech. Like, hey, you should go see a urologist. And went to the urologist, and, well, first of all, like with that whole deal, it was crazy because I ended up making an appointment and they didn't have any appointments. The appointment was only going to be for that, like in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, fine, that's fine. I'll take it. And then I started reaching out to a couple people, and, I actually ended up connecting with the, one of the head guys at a urologist like spot. And, he was nice enough to say, let me just take a look. Let me take a look to see what it is. And he didn't, it's mostly, what do? They do, vasectomies and things like that. So, I mean, he didn't have too much on his plate, and he saw my ultrasounds that day. And he's like, yeah, Danny, this doesn't look good. It's cancer. He's like, I'm like 98% sure it's cancer, but I know you were going to see my counterpart in 2 weeks, but I want to see you tomorrow morning. So went in that next morning. And he's like, yeah, so this is what's going to happen. It's testicular cancer. And on the background, I'm going to start working on getting surgery prepped up for you. And we're going to get that done next week. And I said, okay, that works. That was fast. It was April 27th when I got my surgery. And I mean, it was like, of course you don't know what's going on. Like you feel like your body starts to hurt, like you feel you can't breathe, because then you start looking at all these symptoms that is metastasized. Like you're just sitting on the couch and just waiting for results. And he's texting me and he's like, hey, look, nothing. And like, hey, your numbers are going to be coming down. Like just trying to tell me what's going on. And, I used to have no idea. And, it was like, hey, you got the pathology report back. This was like 10 days after. And he's like, look, it's 45% embryonic carcinoma, and no, it was 40 30 40. So it was 4 or 5. So what is it? 40 50. I don't even remember, but it was like embryonic carcinoma and then mature teratoma. And so the number started to drop, the right way. It's like, hey, everything looks like it should be good. But then come mid-May, my numbers started to kind of rise up a little bit, and they weren't kind of going down all the way. Because I was getting blood work every week. And then, I ended up connecting with Dr. Einhorn, and that was really cool being able to chat with him. And he was like, look, Danny, you're probably going to have to do chemo. Like just pretty like straight up. It's like, he's like, I'm pretty sure that's what you're going to have to do, unless they all come down magically. But it's like in my experience, I've seen that you're probably going to have to do chemo, but you're going to be just fine. I said, okay, that works. Yeah. And of course, like your mind's going. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what to expect, but it's going to happen, and it is what it is. And then I got this blood work results back, and it went down. So I'm like, oh, like, awesome. Like I think it's starting to go down, and my AFP was still kind of the same. It still wasn't going down. So then that next week, my HCG like shot up to like 60. My AFP was like 58. And I was talking to Dr. Cost and Dr. Kessler here in the University of Colorado, because they're specialists for testicular cancer. And, Originally I was going to do them at another facility, but then, the Testicular Cancer Foundation, Kim got me connected with Dr. Koss. I'm like, look, I don't even care. I don't want to go with this other person. No offense to these people, but I want to go with a specialist. Like that's where I want to go. And ended up switching all my care to them. And, and I told Dr. Koss and Kessler, I'm like, look, I'm ready to sign the waivers right now. If I got to start chemo, I want to start it next week. Let's just get on the books and I'm ready to go. So, and then from there, I started chemotherapy June 28th. And then, went through 3 cycles of BEP and then August 23rd of 2021 was my last day.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like you were, really your own advocate, which is kind of rare. I mean, standing up for yourself, asking for the ultrasound, not going with Joe Schmo doctor. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just, I think a lot of it came from the awareness also from Testicular Cancer Foundation, like reading those forms, like a lot of people like, oh, you got to go to a specialist, you got to go here, you got to go here, you got to go there. And that's why it's so important for, what you guys are doing is spreading that awareness is you got to be your advocates. Like if no one, you're the best advocate of your life is going to be you, right? It's not going to be anybody else. No one's going to control your life except you. And and it's if you don't take care of yourself, no one will. So yes, they look at the best interest of you, but you only know how you're feeling. And the medical team is phenomenal, and they're going to listen to you what's ever going to be best for you, and they do. And that's like you have to be like, look, I want to go here, I don't want to go there, and find a way to make it happen.
Jumping back to when your son hit your crotch, when it swelled up, you think that was a coincidence, or was that a result of him jumping on it?
I think it ended up, honestly, like activating it. Like that's the way I put it. Like I think that's what my Dr. Jim Fagelston said. Like it kind of made a reaction, so it made it swell. So blood flew into the testicle, and that's what made it swell up. So I was like, oh wow, like that's like call it like a grace of God. But I'm like, man, and it's crazy because throughout that process, I was like, again, running 500 miles an hour. I was ready to open up a new restaurant. I'm like, I'm ready. We signed the letter of intent in January. And it was the weirdest thing because I was even talking to our brokers. They're like, they haven't signed anything back. This is the longest we've ever seen that they don't really respond. Like, this is really unprofessional of them. Like, come on, guys, like, what's going on? And, thinking back now, I'm like, if I would have signed that, I would have ended up going into that business. And honestly, I would have not cared or looked out for myself. So I'm like, everything worked out for some odd reason.
Yeah. Talk about the going 500 miles an hour and then having to come to this sudden stop.
Oh yeah. It sucks, because when you have to actually come to a sudden stop, it's like, what do you do now? Right. And, you start thinking, of course, all of us, get into that, that depression of like, why me? Like, why me? Like, and, I think it's the attitude of saying, okay, what am I going to learn from this? Like what can I get out of this? And this sucks. And there's absolutely nothing. There's not some person that's going to come and touch me and it's going to go away magically. What can I learn through this process? Who can I impact through this process? And what can I do after this process to really, again, spread awareness, but B, for me personally, what am I going to learn? I think a lot of us go through this like 500 miles an hour deal, and, we don't actually appreciate what's life and what's going through our life and going outside and listening to the birds. Like, I remember walking out of my chemo sessions and I would sit in a restaurant like, man, I can actually hear the music. I can actually hear conversations, not just like tunnel vision focused. And, with testicular cancer being such a crappy situation through my family and my life at that time. But honestly, if I didn't go through that, I honestly wouldn't be where I am today right now and what I'm going through and how I take my days, one day at a time.
Yeah, that's great. So were you in your kind of position of power in the restaurant? Were you able to step away totally, or were you still involved at all?
Yeah, I was able to step away, to sort of the time being. I was thankful to creating an awesome structure with my team and then being able to really take a lot of it, and my brother, kind of being here and helping out as well. And I came to a couple meetings. I would try to show up as much as I could, and I was in a special situation because I didn't have to be working as much and I could just literally sleep and rest the days that I needed to. That's why, not a lot of people get that. But, but for me, honestly, I hated it because I couldn't be there. I couldn't do anything with anybody. And I was just tired and it was hard. Being at home, honestly, was a little more worse because my son at the time was a year and a half. And when he saw me on the couch, like he just wanted to play. And my wife would literally have to rip him off of me because like I was dead. I was tired. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody. And the screaming, like after a day of chemo, like your brain and your head just hurts. And it's just like the smell and any little thing, like you just couldn't cooperate. So honestly, I was like, man, I wish I was at work sometimes because then they gave me my space, but I was at home stuck all the time. And it was sometimes like, it was good, but it was tough in that aspect as well.
Yeah. Did your son, I mean, maybe a year and a half, didn't know exactly what was going on, but he noticed something was different?
Yeah, he did. He kind of started getting it at the end of at like kind of towards the end of my cycles of like, hey, Papa's sick, like he started kind of understanding a little bit. And, but it was, he was good. He was good. I mean, for the most part, I mean, it was, again, it's, when cancer hits you, it just doesn't hit you, it hits your entire family.
Mm-hmm.
It affects everybody, it just doesn't affect one single person. And, a lot of us that go through that, I mean, that's what we say, you're not alone. Like literally, it's like, it's not just you that get cancer, like the entire family gets it. And in a sense, you're the one that's going through that, but the other people that are hurting, like, even though they might not show it, just know, I mean, they're hurting in some sort of way. Like my parents never wanted to cry in front of me, but I even though they did, I'm like, just stop. Like that pettiness, like, we're going to get through this. We're going to go through this. We're going to get it together, but you're crying and your emotions, it's not going to magically poof and go away. It's like, that's going to make it worse. I need that. Hey, we're going to be just fine. We're going to go through this, that motivation factor.
Which stage were you?
I was technically, they called me like a stage 1S, but then they like stage 2, like it was an in between, like stage 1S, stage 2, because my numbers never, I guess, went back to normal and they never jumped up tremendously. There was like microscopic, cancer still in my system somewhere. And they thought it was probably going to be in my lower back area. That's kind of where they thought it was. So they couldn't, because it was so tiny, but they noticed it grew just a tiny like centimeter, like nothing crazy. But so that's why like you're between stage 1 and stage 2.
Yeah. So when you reached out to Dr. Einhorn and he was advising chemo, what were your doctors at home saying?
They were kind of advising the same thing. And, I think what Einhorn was for me was the reassurance, right? Although, my doctors here are professionals, I always love getting second opinions. And the awesome thing about them was they supported me in it. I was like, I think a lot of us, when we're going through chemo, like round 2, about to get into our third cycle, we're like, I don't want to do that third cycle. Like, I'm done. Like, you start reading all these things like, hey, well, the University of Houston Medical Center or whatever, like the best cancer center in America says you should only do 2. And then you start trying to read all these articles online and okay, maybe I only have to do 2 as technically stage 1S. And I even, consulted with my doctors here during the time. And I'm like, hey, do I have to do that third round? Do I have to? And this and that. And they're like, okay, let me just like, let me talk to the people in Houston. I have some colleagues out there and let me see what get their opinion. And, they did their research as well. And like, they were super open talking and made me feel reassured. And they're like, look, we did our research and, we still think you should do it. And that was always been my mentality. Like, if you guys like ask and you're truly transparent with me and I'm going to follow what you tell me, like, you're my coach, I'm your athlete. Like, you tell me to go, I'm going to go.
Yeah. All right. So talk to me about your chemo. You said you did BEP. Did you have any like notable events that happened during chemo?
2 times kicked my butt. Like out of like the times, like there was 2 times that just, I still remember absolutely just killed me. And just like, I was like, oh my goodness. And, it was the bleomycin days, the first day that I got it. Oh my gosh, I got home and like I was shivering for a solid 45 minutes. And I couldn't shop, like just big shivers, and started getting all competitive. I started chugging water. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to the hospital. You're not going to get me. I ended up getting like a 102 fever. But like I was on the phone with my oncologist and she's like, okay, let's just say like, I don't want to send you to to the ER room yet. And like, can you comprehend things? Like, are you loopy? I'm like, no. I'm like, I just know myself. Like ever since I was young, whenever I got a fever, like it would just hit me with a high fever. Like I never would have gotten like sick, but whenever I did get sick, it would always just be high fevers. I'm like, no, doc, this is just annoying. Like I just have a high fever. I'm drinking water. And they walked us through like, hey, take some Tylenol, then take some NyQuil, take some more Tylenol at this time. And then it ended up dropping. So I didn't have to go to the hospital. And then this other time where like I didn't end up eating enough. I want to say this was my last week of my hell week. So it was cycle 3 after Friday, that Saturday, because everything like accumulates and just crushes you on the weekend. That Saturday I didn't eat very well, and I couldn't even get up the stairs. Like I had my dad help me get all the way up the stairs because I was weak, and I'm like I just wasn't hungry that day. And when you're on chemo, you get these weird cravings, and I really wanted like a prime rib, and then I ordered this DoorDash, and the DoorDash didn't even get there, and when they got here, it was like raw. Like it was super weird. I don't even know what I ordered, and I was just so pissed, and like I couldn't even get upstairs. And so those 2 days absolutely just wrecked me. Absolutely, those were the two that I specifically remember. And when I encourage guys that are going through this, especially if they're athletes, I'm like, think about like seasons, right? Like you got three cycles of BEP. The first cycle is like your preseason, like your body's getting used to this. You're getting into the groove of things. It's kind of like that preseason practice type deal. And the second round is like your season. Like that's like, okay, your body's getting used to it now. Like, you know what to expect. Okay, go and kick ass. That third one is postseason. Like that's the state championship. That's the playoffs. That's everything. Like that's when your body is absolutely just starting to fail and crash. And like mentally, I'm like, okay, I've been here before. I've been on championship teams. Like just keep moving, just keep pushing. And that when I walk and get that last, bleomycin bag on my last day, like that's when you win the state championship or national championship. So
that's a great analogy. Do I remember you posting a lot about you were walking and drinking a lot of water, which are both great things?
Yeah. And so it was kind of cool because, I walked with my dad like every day, and that was fun. And that's the one thing that I did realize that helped me a lot throughout the BEP process is my goal would be to drink at least a gallon of water before I went into my sessions. And my goal was to walk more than a mile. And that's what I did for every single time I had a session, my first and second cycle. Again, I thought about it, how my body was going to react. And, I got some movement and got at least a gallon in, and then I would drink another gallon of water during my 5 hours of chemotherapy, of transfusions. So I would drink about 2 gallons of water, and I feel like that's what really helped me throughout my process. And my last cycle, like I didn't walk. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna give my body rest. Again, like thinking about it, like as an athlete, as a football guy, it's like, okay, we're not going to go as hard body because mentally and everything, emotionally, it's going to be harder. So, you just give your body rest. So I didn't even walk my last cycle and except my last day. And, when I walked into the first day, my first day of my first cycle, I walked into the hospital and I told my mom, my dad, my wife, I'm like, look, when I'm done here, I'm going to walk home. And when my last day, I had like a bunch of people come support me. I walked 3.5 miles home from the hospital.
Oh my God. Shout out to you.
So I was like, that was my goal. I'm like, I'm walking out of here. I'm not looking back. And I didn't. I didn't even turn my head once and just laser focus. I'm like, are you guys ready to go? Like, come with me. I'm like, I'm not looking back. I'm just walking.
That's incredible. Drinking all that water, you probably had a lot of that chemo pee smell.
Dude, it was bad. And the thing is, like, some of us still smell it. Like, you walk by something and like it triggers like PTSD. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells like chemo. Like, and it just like, it makes you nauseated and it's just awful. And like, it's cool because like all the Latin, like the nurses they're so cool because they're just hanging out and making sure you're okay. And like I would pass like the nurse's office like maybe like 3 or 4 times because I had to go pee and I was always getting up and it was fun. It was funny.
Yeah, there's a type of laundry detergent that we sometimes accidentally get, and it reminds me of the smell of chemo pee. You mentioned that you wouldn't be the person that you are today if it wasn't for going through this. How do you think that this journey has impacted the way you are as a business leader?
It's helped me understand take one day at a time. It's if things don't get done today, it's fine. They'll be there tomorrow. When you're in the chair, you really can't think about the future. You can't think about the past. Like you can only think about what you can control at that moment. It's the same thing when I'm sitting in this chair. It's like I can't say, shoot, we should have done that. Or, I'm a visionary, so I like to think in the future and thinking that. And, that's what kind of gets me fired up. But that's what I did when I was in chemo. Like I was like thinking about the future and what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. But, it's really helped me take, literally one day at a time. That's the best way I can put it. Be more patient, be more relaxed. Don't take everything so seriously. Enjoying life more than I can. And, and it's like, if you weren't thinking about doing something before cancer and then you have to get cancer, like you want to do it all because you have no idea what could happen after that.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Switching gears. Neither of us are medical professionals, but it is known that testicular cancer is on the rise in the Hispanic community. Is this something that before your diagnosis, you were aware of happening more in?
No, I wasn't. And I love that question, because us Hispanics, me being Mexican, my parents, from Mexico, and I'm first generation Mexican, both my parents. And there's a stigma of machismo, male Mexicans, especially. And, my uncle's father-in-law passed away from testicular cancer, actually.
Wow.
And he had a testicle that was the size of like a grapefruit, but he was too macho of him to go and, even go in and ask to get it, removed or whatever. But when he did, of course, it was too late. And that's for me. It's like, look, us Mexicans, yes, we're macho. Yes, we tend to seem like, we never go to the doctor and things like that. But no, it's important, right? It's like I had no idea, and that's something with awareness that I'm going to constantly keep pushing on my son and or his friends or anybody even in my mom and dad's small town, like, or anybody that I connect with. And it was crazy. After my treatment and everything, and I think it was in February, I took a Cabo trip, and I was talking to this guy who was a cabana guy, like kind of one of the managers, like drink guy, and in Cabo, and him and I started talking. He's like, man, I had such a crazy year last year, all in Spanish. I'm like, I had such a crazy year last year, and that's why we're here. And I'm like, I had cancer and this and that. I didn't tell him what kind. And he's like, oh man, like I get that. Like he was like 40. He's like, I had cancer too, like 5 years ago, and it was crazy. And I get that. I'm like, what kind of cancer did you have? He's like, testicular. I'm like, no way. He's like, I had testicular cancer too. And yeah, I mean, I don't think he had to go through chemo or any of that, but I mean, it's more common than what you think. And especially in the Hispanic Latino community, you're going to start seeing it more often. And, I think it's one of those things that needs to be told and spoken about more often than not.
Yeah, that's great. This is just an observation where I am. Most Mexican restaurants are predominantly employed by people of Hispanic descent. So do you kind of take this, do you have a sense of responsibility to kind of impart on them this kind of thing, or do you separate business from?
I separate business from that type of relationship. They all knew what I was going through. I made it pretty public, like on my media pages, but I also do it in a sense of business as well. in October or November, we're SID as well, so we're a brewery, and I wrap our cans and like to your cancer awareness. So, when if my employees see it and or our customers see it, I have an opportunity to kind of say, I'm like predominantly, people that drink beer are mostly men and male. And I make my can the Mexican lager. And then of course, Latinos and Mexicans, of course, they love their good Mexican lagers majority of the time. So whenever they do pick up a can, and we'll put those in the liquor store this year, like they'll see it's like my photo and my story. And and just like that. So it's, my job, I feel like my obligation is to raise awareness in a way, and if I'm in this platform, like if I have a platform in some sort, I want to be able to raise awareness in some sort of way.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's like I don't mind talking about it. And I think that's one of those things that all guys and anybody that listens to this is, it's part of your story. It sucks. It's a crappy part of our story in our life, but there's a saying, how great would it be if, if the hero in your journey didn't go through tribulations? Like, how good of a story would that be? It's terrible if your story is just completely like this, and you don't have any ups and downs. Like, you're not going to go watch an action movie and there not be any action, right? You're gonna be like, that movie was just okay. You want to watch a movie that's going to be up and down and everything, and not only going to create more awareness, but honestly, I think that's how the healing process is actually going to help as well. Being able to talk about it and not hide it. It's like, yeah, I had cancer. Like, I went to this like masterminds deal yesterday. And like, what's a fun fact about yourself and this and that, like whatever. I'm like, I'm this. And a fun fact about myself, I'm 30 years old and I'm a cancer survivor. Like, it's the healing process. It's the talking about it and not being ashamed of it.
Yeah. And I want to take this moment to just recognize that TCAF has resources available in Spanish. You can find them on testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. But Daniel Ramirez, is there anything else that you want to add?
Can't think of anything, Steven. No, I mean, it's just, love what you guys are doing, like I said, and if there's always anything that I can do for you guys, love donating to your guys' foundation. And, it's, you guys are doing an awesome job and love the continued awareness. And, I think we can start changing the world one step at a time, and one podcast at a time.
Is there anybody you want to shout out?
Definitely big shout outs to AJ. He was a big guy, and then all the people that helped me out there. From Matt. I forget their last names, but like Matt, he's a big testicular cancer guy as well. A big cancer page that he has on Facebook. He helped me through that process as well. I mean, even to you, Steven, big shout out to you for you doing this and helping me through my process. To Kim, to the Testicular Cancer Union Society. I know you guys, they're different, but like, different foundations, and, of course, my wife, my family, and everybody that's helped me support through this process. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys, and you guys are my day ones through this.
Shout out your restaurants where people are going to be able to get the beers.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Shout out to Los Dos, right? So Los Dos Patrios Mexican restaurants, out here in Colorado. And we'd love to hear you guys' stories. If you guys ever come to one of my restaurants, we'd love to sit down and we can talk shop and about how you're doing. And I know there's a couple of us that have testicular cancer that have been to my restaurants that are here from Colorado, and always feel free to come by. And we're in Centennial, Littleton, Parker, Highlands Ranch, Colorado. We're opening up in Castle Rock next year. I'm opening up a new one this year in North Glen, a fast casual. That's up north, 120th and I-25. And then I also have 2 food trucks that roam Colorado. So, and a brewery that you can find our cans around the Denver metro area.
Cool. That's happening in November. You're having those cans?
The November cans are going to be happening in November. So it's Male Awareness Month, and make sure to send you guys some, or find a way to send you guys some to kind of, you guys can kind of see the vision. And, we'll see. Last year we did the Crowlers, giant Crowlers. I had a couple stories of different testicular cancer guys. So kind of give everybody their own can, and we'll see if we do that again this year, or, we just stick to the one Mexican lager.
Cool. Daniel Ramirez, thank you so much for being on It Takes Balls.
I appreciate it, Steven. Thank you.
For more information and resources for your testicular cancer journey, visit testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. You can also follow us on social media at Testis Cancer. We're on Facebook at Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation.